Hey guys, welcome to Capturing Christianity. Today, I am interviewing a guy named Lukas, and I literally, like right before we went live, I asked him how to pronounce his name. So I think it's a Ruger.
That's right. That's good.
Nice, nice. But the name of your apologetics channel is called Deflate. So I want to ask you. Well, first of all, I've titled this like I've said that you're like the fastest growing apologist on YouTube, and I haven't actually like run the numbers, but I've just noticed that I mean you recently hit 10,000 likes, which is a pretty big milestone, or subscribers, and so that and you hit that fairly quickly, I think. Since at least when you started your channel, I've also looked at some of the numbers of your videos. They're getting a lot of views and everything. So you're growing at a really, really quick rate. But the question I want to ask you as we start this is where did the name Deflate come from? Because that seems kind of, deflating. It doesn't sound super exciting.
Yeah, I actually thought when I started out, the aim for me was to just have a go at the most common objections against Christianity. So I thought, well, I'm going to deflate, the arguments that are inflated and that have the appearance of being big. But really, I think now I've really grown to like the fact that my channel brings people together, or I hope to be bringing people together from
Hmm.
the different ends of the spectrum. And then in this sense, I like to interpret my name as deflating the tensions that sometimes arise when these discussions happen. So yeah, I guess I started out a bit differently, like with what I wanted to communicate with the name. And now really I'm passionate to bring people together to discuss, God and the existence of God, and to do so, in peace, and again with the intention of deflating, aggression and the anger that sometimes arises.
So tell me why you wanted to start your channel in the first place, because you, I think, have met a whole lot more obstacles than probably, like, so if you're a YouTuber in America, you probably haven't hit the obstacles that Lukas has hit in starting his channel. So why don't we talk about that a little bit, and then how you sort of persevered through those obstacles and those challenges, and why you're here.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, it's thanks to people like you who inspired me to do this. We do apologetics on the ground in Beirut, Lebanon. We've been doing this for like 3, 4, 5 years. I've gathered people in my living room for discussions. I've actually become friends with the leader of like one of the biggest atheist clubs in Beirut. And because of our friendship, when he traveled and moved on to Scotland to finish his studies, he made me admin of his page. He said, well, I need someone to take care of my people. Would you like to do that? And I said, I mean, I would love to, but I'm not going to become an atheist because of it. And he said, well, I know, but I trust you and I want you to, take care of my discussion circle. So we've been doing that sort of thing for a while on the ground. And at some time I thought, or at some point I thought, well, let's try and do this online. And again, you've inspired me big time to give it a go. And so I went live, or I launched in July last year. And then a month later, Beirut got hit by this massive explosion that just, shattered the city. And yeah, it
Yeah.
just like I struggled big time just to keep up with everything, let alone with trying to run my YouTube channel. But yeah, I've here we are. I managed somehow, and yeah, I enjoy
Yeah.
it big time. I love it.
I've seen like videos of that explosion, and being from the U.S., it was so distant from me. But you were actually there. So where were you when it happened? What were the circumstances? Were you anywhere
Yeah.
close? Did you hear it?
I mean, we moved out of the city like around a year ago, just like a half year before the explosion. So we live a bit in the suburbs, but you could hear and feel it everywhere. I was in the kitchen with my kids. We were playing a board game. My wife was out meeting someone, and so it would just be like boom, like you could feel it. You could feel it in the walls. You could hear it definitely. Like we all ran
What
to
was
the
your first
window to
thought?
my first thought was that like either like a bomb attack, like a suicide attack, or well, like an airstrike by someone, like by Israel possibly. So we went to the window. We saw the smoke arising from the air, from the port, which is where it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start texting everyone, hey, what happened? And again, the first thing I heard, and the first thing I thought was again the headquarters of a political party got hit. And then, your mind starts turning, well, is civil war coming and all of that stuff. And then also I was kind of like, my wife was on the way. I was talking to her whether she's fine. She was good. Again, everyone heard it. I mean, you could feel it. Even in Cyprus, they said they felt the pressure from
So
the
you
explosion.
you had to overcome that to get your channel started. It's just like, I've had my own like set of issues in starting my channel and getting it to where it is now, but nothing like an explosion that, rocked the whole economy of my nation. So let's talk about your channel. What have you been focusing on recently? I noticed that if you just scroll through some of your most recent videos, a lot of them are about Cosmic Skeptic or responding to him. Do you typically focus on doing responses? Do you plan on doing different types of content? What are you sort of focused on lately?
Yeah, I've definitely, yes, that's right. I've done a couple of responses to Alex. I actually have more coming. And the way it happened is that I thought I really want to examine his view on ethics, because he says that he's passionate about ethics. And I believe that he's genuine when he says that. I mean, he really does care about animal rights. I think he really does care about human suffering. And so I thought, because he does so from an objectivist moral standpoint, I thought, well, I want to see how he actually gets there, because, usually it's not, you have a hard time, I think, as an atheist to get to objectivist ethics. So I thought, well, I want to see how he does it. And I did that. I launched a first response, which 30 minutes long, but that wasn't I wasn't done there. There was more to come. And I think, well, there's also
he was a subjectivist.
No, he's not. He is and I think many people misunderstand him, and I think he's probably frustrated with that. I mean, I've seen responses from other people who think that, well, he must be, again, a relativist, because most people, I guess, stereotypically think that, well, as an atheist, you end up with subjective or relativist morality, but he's not. He believes that he has successfully established objectivist ethics. So I launched I did a first response to that. In the meantime, he published his biggest case against Christianity on animal suffering. I thought, well, that's interesting too. I had to go at this one. And Alex actually reached out to me in an email after he saw my response to his ethics. He said that he's never ever seen anyone looking at his ethics so thoroughly and so carefully. And he actually said that he really liked my response and that we should have a live conversation about it. But it's never happened so far. I guess, he's busy with exams. He said, so we see, maybe in the future it happens or so.
Yeah. So I'll talk to him. He'll actually be on our channel tomorrow. And so I can talk to him about setting something like that up. I'm pretty confident he'd be open to doing it on Capturing Christianity. So I'll definitely talk to him about that tomorrow.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, he sent me the email. He said, hey, I would be happy to come onto your channel to talk about it. And then he sent another email saying, or maybe we can ask Cameron to host it. I said, yeah, sure. But you ask him, you might know him better than I do. So
yeah. He'll be on the channel tomorrow, so we can talk about it.
That's cool.
Then. So you interviewed me on your channel recently, and you asked me a question. I want to ask you the same question. The question that you asked me was, who is your favorite atheist on YouTube? I think that's what you asked. So I'm going to ask you the same question. Who is your favorite atheist?
Yeah, it's the same. It would be Alex.
Same person.
For me. I
what are
really
your
appreciate
reasons?
him. Yeah, I think he is he's very nuanced, and he's genuinely open, I think, to admit where he's gone wrong. I also think, and again, that's kind of what launched me into looking at his stuff more closely. Again, I think he has genuine compassion with those who suffer. And I just think he sets a great example. And I do talk about that in one of my videos. He sets a great example of engaging with the issues of our time, or with philosophical issues, not just with our mind, but with our heart. Again, I believe he's genuinely passionate about the problem of of suffering. And so I think, I find that truly inspiring. Yeah.
So what do you think is the reason why your channel has seen some success recently? What is the reason for that? The main reason?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I just try to, to do what I do. And I guess to be honest, I sometimes struggle and wonder whether what I offer is too technical or whether my arguments and line of reasoning is just too difficult to follow.
I worry about that a lot too.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I must also say that I have a designer, a friend of mine who does my thumbnails, because I could never come up with the thumbnails that I have. And I think that helps a lot, because unless you can capture people with a nice looking thumbnail, it's kind of hard it's hard to get the click for people to actually watch your video.
That is super wise of you to do that. And I've been really impressed with the lighting on your videos, with your thumbnails, and so the basic overall presentation of everything. That's another thing. Obviously, as someone with a photography background, that's something that I pay attention to, and I can't really not pay attention to it when I look. And so your channel is doing really, really well on that. Far and above most apologetics channels, I would say.
Yeah.
So congrats on that. Well, I want to let people know that we are going to move to some audience Q&A. So if you've got a question, we did have a super chat that came in from Brute Facts Podcast. We'll talk about that in just a second. If you've got a question for either myself or for Lukas, then let me know in the live chat. I'm going to try this. So in the past, I haven't had you do anything to let me know that you're asking a question. But what I want you to do is type out question in all caps in the live chat. And so that way it'll be a whole lot easier for me to follow or to find your question if you do that. And I'll go ahead and put it on the screen and we'll answer it here live. So yeah, we'll move to that in just a second. But Lukas, so what are some future projects? You've mentioned Alex, but do you have any other future projects that you're working on? Where do you see your channel going in the next? You may not have thought about this, but where do you see it going the next couple years, next 5 years? What is the future of Deflate?
Yeah. Wow, 5 years is a long time.
It is a long time.
Yeah, I guess I just, I hope to really be, I guess, impacting people, to make people think. And again, I'm passionate to bring people together over the question of God and over the question of Christianity. A big project I have in the pipeline is I'm going to launch a series on intelligent design. The first video is going to come up in 2 weeks, actually. I'm basically going to go through Stephen Meyer's book, Darwin's Doubt, which is a New York bestseller and which I've studied and I've done presentations on it. And my aim is to introduce the kind of the layperson to the basics of, critical thinking about evolutionary theory and the basics of intelligent design. Now, I guess I'm going to trigger some people with that, but I am passionate about that. And I have a bit of a journey, a personal journey with intelligent design, in the sense that I guess 5 years ago, I didn't really care about the question. I thought, well, as a Christian or in apologetics, it's better not to get involved in discussions about evolution, because in the end you could be, technically you can be a Christian and hold to evolution. So why mess with people, or why get into heated discussions? But I think I've changed my mind a bit, in the sense that, Darwinism or neo-Darwinism is kind of, it lends itself, or it supposedly lends itself as support for secularism or atheism. And I feel that, well, whenever you can kind of challenge it and challenge it scientifically, you kind of challenge atheism implicitly, because in people's heads, even though philosophically it doesn't quite hold up, in people's heads, evolution and atheism are still, they're linked, and one kind of lends itself to the other. So I think it's important to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, in my, I'm for people that don't know this, I'm actually in the middle of writing a response script that will eventually be turned into a video response to Alex's video, Christianity's Biggest Problem, which focuses on animal suffering. And that's one of the things that I focus on as well, is this link that atheists try to make between atheism and evolution. and I point out some interesting complications or issues that arise as atheists attempt to do this. So yeah, that's cool that you've been thinking about that too. All right, let's get to some audience questions. I've got a beautiful little scene here. We can display these questions. So let's get to the first one. This was a super chat, not a question, from Brute Facts Podcast, which you guys should go check out. Brute Facts, if you like apologetics podcasts or YouTube channels, go check him out. He's been doing interviews with a whole bunch of people. He even did one with Richard Carrier recently, which I was watching this morning. Learned some interesting things about Richard Carrier. So he says, just left minor med, getting a huge barbed hook removed from my thumb. How's your Monday? My Monday isn't that bad, but yeah, that sounds pretty terrible. But hopefully you guys can go check out his YouTube channel, make him feel a little bit better there. So Maverick Christian, he's got a question. He says, this green colored donation symbolizes my envy as a Christian content creator that Lukas got to converse with Alex O'Connor. Maverick Christian, so that you guys haven't actually conversed yet. Is that right? You haven't talked to Alex in person on our YouTube channel or anything?
No, just emails back and forth. Yeah. Yeah.
So Wade, I'm totally open to having it as well. The thing though that starts to happen is like I've had Alex on my channel a bunch, and so I love having him on, but it's like it can't just all be about Alex O'Connor on capturing Christian. Yeah. I've got to find other, because he's not the only atheist or non-theist out there. So I've tried to maybe eventually. I mean, maybe we could wait a couple months and do something else. But Wade, I'm totally open to having you on, to having a dialogue with him, and I think he'd be open to it as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question for Lukas from Aqua Point. He or she says, how and when did Lukas become a Christian?
Yeah. So I was in my early 20s when I had my conversion experience, if you want. A bit of my background, I grew up in like a home with believing parents. My dad, in fact, was a preacher in an Anabaptist church. And so if there's one thing I could remember from my childhood, the first thing I can remember about the faith, the first thing I grasped was that, well, this is about whether I really want that. I have to make my own decision whether Jesus is for me or not. And then I guess my older brothers, I have 4 siblings. My 2 older brothers, I think they became believers in their early teens. And so for me, the key thing that kept me from the faith was that in my 14, 15, 16-year-old, I got involved with human rights advocacy groups, animal rights advocacy groups. I would go to protests and demonstrations. And I always felt like, well, Christians really don't seem to care about this stuff. So why should I get involved with the Christian faith? Because these things, they really matter to me. So yeah, but then I think at the age of 19, 20, I didn't have a job, or I had some time for myself. And I just started reading the Bible, and it was really, I remember reading through the New Testament. And for some reason, I realized, well, I need Christ, I need him. So I reached out and said, Lord, be Lord of my life, and, forgive me the stuff that I've messed up with. So, and then I realized it was a bit of a journey for me to realize that Jesus has a whole lot of things to say about issues of social justice. And so I realized there is actually, it's no problem to keep the two things together.
All right. Here's a question from Miss Mutola. How does Islam look in Lebanon currently?
Oh, that's a great question. Most young people we kind of have contact with, they are very secular in their outlook. And I think there is a great deal of misunderstanding in the West of how Islam looks like in the Middle East. In general, young people who go to universities, they are very secularized in their thinking. I mean, Beirut has quite a thriving LGBTQ scene community. And we even have leading figures of that scene coming to our Bible studies every now and then. Most young people, they have probably never entered a mosque. They haven't bothered reading the Quran. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people are relativists, moral relativists. A lot of people believe that science is the true fountainhead of knowledge, and that the Quran is, is a superstitious book that doesn't help you with anything. And then also, to be honest, the stuff that's been happening in the past with ISIS and the violence hasn't helped. A lot that has pushed people even more away from, those people who might have had more of a kind of traditional outlook on life and may have had some sort of tendency to still keep kind of holding to Islam. That has kind of pushed those people away as well. So Lebanon looks very secular. The youth culture looks very, very secular. It's far closer to, how the youth looks like in the West, in a place like New York or, California or wherever, than most people imagine. And I think the problem is with the media, both the general media and even the Christian media, which always highlights, whenever there is some suicide attack or whatever, that's what we get to hear from the Middle East. But the reality is that, people on a normal day, they go to university and they read their science books and they discuss, issues of, politics or philosophy. And again, in these discussions, most young people take a very secular or agnostic, atheist standpoint.
So we haven't talked about this. I should have mentioned this earlier, but you definitely need to pause this video, go subscribe to Lukas's channel called Deflate. And one of the reasons why you want to do this is not just because he's like, one of the fastest growing apologists on YouTube. And if you're interested in this content, probably there's good reason you'd be interested in his content as well. That's not just the only reason. I've learned something recently about Lukas, which I just think is amazing and awesome. And I want to let you guys in on it. Lukas, I hope this is not revealing too much. But what Lukas does with his videos is something that I do with my videos, or at least when I have like a video that I'm preparing and writing a script for, and I, record it in advance and edit it down and stuff. One of the things that Lukas is doing is he's running his scripts by professional like experts, philosophers. And one of the guys he's running it by is actually a mutual friend of ours. And this is like one of the best ways to make sure that your content, it doesn't matter who you are, if you're a Christian, if you're an atheist, this is one of the best ways I think that we can help encourage people to raise the dialectic. So like bring the dialogue level up. Talk about issues that are currently being talked about in academia. Run your ideas by professionals who are like, okay, yeah, this is not a really good idea for, X, Y, and Z. And this has been talked about in this set of papers. And so you may want to go read those papers before you publish this video. Stuff like that is invaluable for people like us who are just, we're both lay people in this field. Even though you might refer to us as apologists, we're still not, we don't have PhDs. We're not actively studying these things, publishing papers and peer review. That's not our job. We have a different job. But running our ideas by the experts, getting their feedback, adjusting what we say depending on their feedback, that is so valuable to me. And the fact that this is something you're doing is, I think everybody should be doing it, but the fact that you've already been doing it is just, it speaks really highly of you. So for that reason, go subscribe. You have my permission. Pause this video. Open the description box, click his channel, go watch his stuff. You don't have to come back to this video. Whoops, if you don't want to. You can listen to the rest of the interview, obviously. But the point of this is that I want you to be aware of Lukas. I want you to go subscribe to his channel. And yeah, unless you have anything to add, we'll get to some more questions.
No, thanks for that. Let me just say that it was actually, on your Facebook page, or I think maybe on the Capturing Christianity group, Facebook group, where I was introduced to Dan Miller. So Dan, if you're listening to this or watching this, thank you. So he's the guy who reads most of my scripts. And again, this is super awesome and so valuable. It adds great value to the videos. Yeah, I couldn't do without it. Yeah,
Dan is so awesome. Okay, so we have some more questions that have come in. So this one from Roger Hello. He says, where and what do you do in Lebanon when it comes to apologetics? I'm Lebanese and am interested.
Oh, wow.
It's so cool Roger, that we have a lot of Lebanese people watching this and asking questions.
Yeah. So Roger, I mean, if like shoot me an email after this, you'll find my email on my channel, and then I can send you my phone number so we can talk. So basically, we run a Bible study for skeptics once a week on Thursday night in a place called Beehive in Hamra. If you know that, like at 8 p.m., no, 7 p.m. we meet, and we are usually between 15 and 20 people. And then again, most people are, well, from all sorts of backgrounds, but who've become agnostics or atheists. And then what we basically do is we just read one chapter in the Bible. We're in Matthew currently, and then the space is open for questions and comments, and we just do this together. And then we like once a month or twice a month we do discussion nights. We open like a specific topic, like for example, does science only give us knowledge, or is morality objective? Why does the universe exist? Again, we bring people together from all walks of life and all sorts of different backgrounds. So yeah, and we're actually planning for the fall. We're planning a more public debate. We've done that like 3 years ago, when we had some really good echo to that. We did that with people from a organization called Café Scientifique, and once with the Lebanese atheists. So yeah, that's the sort of stuff we do. And again, do reach out, Roger. I would love to get to know you. We can meet.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got a lot more questions that have come in. This is really cool. So this one is from LB from T. And sorry, I just messed with my formatting here, so all the stuff is kind of out of line here. Okay, so LB from T says, question, did Lukas study apologetics via the distance learning program at Biola? I'm thinking of doing that. Greetings from Luku out of Thun.
Luke?
Where's that?
Luke. Yeah, Luku. I guess Luku out from Thun. So that's in Switzerland. That's actually close. So my mother-in-law lives in Bern, which is just around the corner from Thun. Yes, I finished the master's program in Christian apologetics at Biola, and I would highly recommend the program. It's a great program. It just, it gives you just a basic overview over the key, philosophical issues. I mean, issues in apologetics. There's, you get to learn about metaphysics, epistemology, philosophy of science. Again, it just lays the groundwork for you to dig into this stuff, and it's a great program. I would highly recommend it.
Nice. Okay, from Joel Clements, he says, question, ask Lukas if he's a fan of Tintin. What is the context of this? Does this make sense to you?
Tintin, I think, is a comics, right? I used to, if I'm not mistaken, it's a comics, Tintin. I think it's French in origin. I used to read it when I was a kid. So yeah, I haven't picked it up. I haven't picked it up ever since.
Fair enough. Okay, so this one is from Honestly Atheist. He says, capturing Christianity. Question for Lukas. Do you designate a devil's advocate among those philosophers who review your scripts to look at it with a critical eye? It's a good question.
Yeah, no, so far, no, I haven't done that. Well, some of my scripts, I have given them to people who are atheists, but again, the person who regularly looks at all my scripts, or most of my scripts, is Dan Miller. He's a Christian philosopher, or a philosopher who is a Christian also. So no, I must honestly say I have not yet designated a person like Dan Miller who would regularly look at my scripts, but from an atheist point of view. I have.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I'll say something. I've got a lot of thoughts on this myself. So personally, I've only recently started doing this, where I have a non-theist comment on my scripts, and his feedback is always really good. But it's not like it's not as if his objections aren't raised by other people. First of all, so in a lot of times, like, this was something that I learned as I was starting to get into apologetics and philosophy, is that like some of the best objections to theistic arguments weren't coming from atheists that I was reading. They were coming from other Christians, other believing Christians. So it's not as if like an atheist is going to raise necessarily. I'll caveat that with saying it's not necessarily that the atheist is going to raise the strongest or the most pertinent objections to someone's view. It's it really just, I mean, if you had everybody in the world comment on your script, you're going to get a whole lot of good objections, more than likely. You'll get a lot of bad objections as well. But the more people you have in general, yeah, you're going to get some more objections, and some of those will be super valuable. But a lot of times, like, it doesn't have to. The only point I want to make here is that it doesn't have to be an atheist in order to get a good, strong objection. A lot of professional philosophers, some of these people are actually, like, part of their job is to be a reviewer of papers. And so their job is to literally look for holes in ideas. And, like, that is what they get paid to do. So it's not as if you've got to be like an atheist or a Christian to really just like criticize someone's views or their ideas or say like, yeah, this isn't very good. You probably need to shore up this area here. So the bias there, I know that that's a worry. It's like maybe they're not being as critical as they could be. But when you're talking about a professional philosopher who is getting paid to do this, they've done the requisite work in order to understand how critical thinking and logic and all of that works. Then a lot of times you are going to get someone who is going to be very fair because the people. So one last thing, and I'll let you come in, Lucas. One last thing about this is that the philosophers that you have reviewing your stuff, it's not as if they are the ones giving this argument, so they can be kind of detached from it. It's not as if they feel like they've got to defend the things that you're saying, right? They may or may not agree with your argument, but it's not as if they have to agree with it. You know, just being a Christian doesn't mean that you have to agree with every argument that a Christian makes. And so in that combined with the fact that these philosophers kind of get paid to disagree with people, I think that that's like, you know, it kind of lessens this concern about Christian bias. And I mean, it's not to say that it's completely invaluable, because I've had a non-theist begin commenting on my scripts and he has raised some good points and that were worthy of addressing. So I definitely recommend doing that, but I just wanted to kind of push back a little bit on the sort of underlying thought that's behind this question, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, again, Dan, who reviews my stuff, he constantly tries to, you know, to steelman. When I'm responding to Alex, he says, well, you know, let us steelman Alex's position there, and then you have to rephrase your argument. And, you know, Alex could come back and tell you this, or people who could come back and tell you that. So it's, yeah, I mean, that's exactly his job as a reviewer. He tries to make you as strong as possible in your presentation and your argument, which means that he will look as critically as possible at the stuff you're presenting. Right.
Yep. Okay, so moving on, we've got a few more questions. This one from Haley Luya. Has he faced any backlash or problems from certain groups for having a Christian apologetics channel in a Middle Eastern country?
No, I haven't so far. And I think as long as we're not doing, you know, Christian, like Muslim apologetics, I think we're safe, because as long as we're trying to make an argument for God, even the Muslims will be happy. But the thing is, because religion has become so politicized, you know, and it's, well, you know, all of politics and all of life in society is done along the sectarian lines or along religious lines. And so if we were to, or if I were to like have a go at Islam or Muslim arguments for the Quran or for Islam, then I'd get myself into trouble for sure. And so that's one of the reasons why I think I'm not going to do that.
So we've got a few more questions here. I don't want to take too long with this stream today. We'll kind of close it out. Let Lucas. He probably had other things to do today. I just like messaged him a couple hours ago. It's like, hey, let's do a live stream, and it just worked out that both of our schedules allowed for it. So we won't go too much longer. Aqua Point Bishoy Shia. I'm assuming it's a she. I have no idea. He or she asked a question earlier, but they've got another question. I really love both of your guys' setup, from the lighting, camera, audio to editing softwares. I know you have your gear in the description. Thanks. I wanted to ask if Deflate can link his. So I've talked to you about this as well. You have people that help you with your camera and your lighting setups and everything. Yeah. Have you? Yeah, just talk more about that.
Sure. Well, that's a good point. I need to take note here. I haven't linked my gear or the stuff we use. That's right. And here's the thing. Part of my work in the Middle East is we produce Christian media content actually for Arabic, like Arab ministry platforms. We also, I mean, we run, for example, the first social media campaign in Arabic for Billy Graham, the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. And so I work with the studio, and my filming and post production is done by my friend and colleague in the office. And I mean, I have no idea how to do the lighting, which is why now I'm not in the office and the lighting isn't as nice
Schnazzy.
as it is.
Schnazzy is
Exactly,
the
as
word
it
you're
is
looking
man.
for.
That's right, as it is in my videos. But yeah, thanks for the suggestion. I need to take note of this and put it in my description boxes in the future.
Okay, so another question from same person. What is your favorite? Okay, so I don't know if this is to me or to you, but I guess we can both respond. What's your favorite argument for God, and what is the hardest objections against God that you've come across?
Yeah, well, I think the hardest objection is what you answered as well, Cameron, when we had our interview on my channel. I think that the toughest objection is the problem of evil. But then I actually think this this very problem or issue may actually make for the strongest argument for Christianity in the following sense, that I believe, people who raise the problem of evil as an objection against God, you can do that from a philosophical standpoint, but also there is an existential side to it. When you go through suffering, or when loved ones of you go through stuff that they struggle with, it just feels like, well, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to the people I love? And why doesn't God intervene? Now here's the thing. I believe that when we go through suffering, what we need is not information that explains to us why we go through suffering. To give you an example, my sister lost two of her babies. In fact, I think the last baby she lost, she had to give birth to it because it was some special condition so she had to give birth to the baby, and she knew that as she's giving birth to the baby, it will die. But this was the only way for my sisters to survive. And so, this was super tough. There was no other way out. Now, for my sister, there was no medical explanation of the condition would have helped her. That wouldn't have made things easier, or it might have, given her some context as to, okay, why is this happening? But that's not really what she needed. I think when you go through suffering, what you really need is a person who listens to you and who cries to you and who is able to tell you, well, I actually know how this feels, or I can imagine how tough that this is. And so here is what Christianity offers. It says that the creator of the universe actually stepped down into the messiness of the world and stepped down, went as low as going through death himself. And that's why the New Testament tells us that Christ is able to empathize with us in our suffering. And so I believe, while the suffering of this world may be the hardest objection against Christianity or against theism, I believe that Christianity has the most beautiful answer to it, in the sense that it tells you that God himself can feel with you when you go through this stuff. So yeah,
That was really poetic and beautiful, Lukas. I wasn't expecting that. So let's get to just a couple more questions, and we'll close it out. So this one is from Kyle Zin Yi. Kyle Zin Yi. Has Lukas read Swinburne because he is the most epic theistic philosopher?
Yes, I've read Swinburne. I've only read one of his book. Is it? I think it's one of his classics, God's Existence.
The
But I
Existence
must
of God.
say, The Existence of God. That's right. But I must say, it was a very tough read. It's not kind of bedtime reading. It's not bedtime reading at all. But I definitely enjoyed it. And I just had recently someone bring up another one of Swinburne's books, which I've put on my reading list. That is as long. Well, it will take some time until I get to it. But I have Swinburne on my reading list.
Okay, so we did just have a super chat come in from Sai Sarab. Sai Sarab. He or she. You are doing great work. Have you explored Hindu/Buddhist philosophies? There's not much apologetics from the East, but would love your thoughts.
I mean, I've studied Hinduism and Buddhism as part of the world religions course at Biola, but I don't have enough practice, to be honest, to get involved in actual arguments. I mean, technically, I guess I could raise some issues with regards to Hinduism and Buddhism, but it would be very theoretical. I mean, I don't have any Hindu friends or Buddhist friends where I can really feel, where the tough issues lie. So,
yeah, fair enough. Okay, so 2 more questions, I think, or maybe this may be the last one actually, from D-Pick Later. What are some of your theological beliefs? Do you find yourself really convinced of specific views or more lean in the direction of them?
well, okay, I guess it's a bit the general question. I mean, there are definitely, views of which I'm convinced. I believe that, I'm definitely convinced that God is a Trinity, that Christ is, God made flesh, and I have a view of penal substitution as the theory of atonement. So yeah, I mean, I guess there are things that I'm definitely convinced of, which I'm happy to discuss nevertheless. And then there are other things, well, where I would hold a more, relaxed position. But I mean, I guess there are many of them. Should a person refrain from drinking alcohol in certain contexts? Yes, I guess I believe that. But these are not deciders. These are not what kind of keeps you in or out of the community of faith. Yeah.
So that was the last question, but I did see, as I was looking through the live chat just now, a really nice comment that I wanted to just put up here. It says, love your content, Light Shiner. Love your content, Lukas. God bless what you're doing. We're praying for you, Cameron, and all the YouTube apologists. I just thought that was really nice.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so yeah, go subscribe to Lukas. Stop this video right now. Go pull up his channel, linked in the description of this video. Go check him out. You will not be disappointed. Got some really, really great stuff there. I actually really liked your response to Alex. I was not expecting you to go there, and I'm not going to tell people what it was like, or what the content was in there. So maybe it'll convince people to go check it out. But yeah, it was a really good response. A lot of stuff to think about for sure. So so definitely go check out his work, his videos, and be on the lookout for more stuff from Lukas. Is there anything that you'd like to leave with my audience?
No, that's good. Thank you so much, Cameron, for bringing me on. I thought that was awesome that it worked out so spontaneously. And again, just letting everyone know that Cameron was a key inspiration for me to get started. And I keep being inspired by your work, Cameron. And yeah, it's good to be doing this and, encouraging each other as we try the best we can. Yeah.
Yeah. One of these days, you're going to have to come to one of the Capturing Christianity conferences. I'm going to have to just get you out here. I'm just going to have to fly you out here some way.
Sure.
It'd be awesome to finally meet you in person. Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in today, and we will see you in the next video. All right. See ya. Hey, it's me again. Actually, don't leave yet. I've got something super, super important to tell you. So first of all, you're awesome. You just watched a really, really long video just now, and you're still watching it. That is actually pretty amazing. Secondly, we have hundreds, literally hundreds of other apologetics related videos for you to watch on our channel. Go check them out. I've interviewed exorcists, hosted debates between Christians and atheists. I've even made response videos to atheists. All of that is available on our channel. Go check it out. Third, I rely on people that see value in my work, people like you that watch videos to the very end, to keep the lights on around here. Literally, this is how I feed my family. So if you see value in the work that I do, please consider supporting this ministry and becoming a patron. Links to that are in the description. Oh, and have I mentioned that Christianity is